Today, we've got Texas House Republicans unveil new congressional map that looks to pick up 5 GOP seats. That's what we're going to talk about today. We'll take a look at the new proposed map. We'll see which members are in danger, and we'll talk about the big picture. So first, the sub-headline is, the first draft of the lower chamber's new redistricting map targets Democratic members of Congress in the Austin, Dallas, and Houston metro areas and in South Texas. It's important to note that this is just a proposal. It's a long way from being enacted. There could be changes. Democrats are going to try to stop it, and there's going to be a slew of legal challenges. But with that said, I've looked at every other redistricting map on this channel. Most of it was 3 years ago during the regular time period. But there's been a few redraws since, and there's bound to be a few more, especially in Ohio. So let's get down into this article. Now, when we talk about drawing a new map, there's two ways to look at it. Of course, Dems unanimously are going to be opposed. That makes sense. This is going to favor the Republicans. Meanwhile, most Republicans are going to be excited about picking up some new seats. Usually these redistricting discussions always turn into, well, that side does it more, so we've got to do it ourselves. Everybody thinks the other side does it more than the other. People are locked in their positions on that. But I've looked at every map on this channel across multiple elections and with different metrics. And prior to this proposal, the current Texas map, I would say, has a moderate Republican advantage. They're getting at least a couple extra seats out of it, but it's far from extreme and not as bad as some other states. So let's go over some of the main points. Texas has 38 congressional districts. Republicans currently hold 25 of them. Now, Donald Trump carried 27 of those in 2024. So that means there's 2 House districts that were won by Democrats. That's going to be Henry Cuellar and Vicente Gonzalez. Now, on this new map, Trump would have won 30 of the 38 districts. Dems, 8 of them. And each of those would be at least by 10 percentage points. So this is definitely aggressive. There's no other way to spin it. Back when Republicans drew the current map after 2020, it looked like the state could be getting bluer. So they were big on defending incumbents. A lot of that's going to be in the suburbs. And they weren't anticipating South Texas and Hispanic voters moving sharply or even moderately toward the right. So here's the proposed map right here. And we'll look a little bit closer at some of these districts later on. But you can see a lot of the damage is going to be in the major metro areas. It's mostly going to be Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, San Antonio, and Houston. The easiest thing for Republicans to have done would be shore up a little bit of support with 2 districts in South Texas, the 28th and the 34th. Those already voted for Trump. Just a few more points, Republicans would have had 2 more seats. But this map clearly goes way beyond those 2 seats. Now, this has set off a firestorm with Democrats in other states threatening to redraw their maps and push out more Republicans. That might happen. If it does, we'll be sure to take a look at those maps. But in this situation, Republicans are making a gamble here, mostly with Hispanic voters. They have moved toward Trump, but it's possible that's just kind of an anomaly. The trends might not at all continue, or they could go back toward the Dems. If that happens, this map might not pan out exactly as they hope. Plus, the big thing for next year in the midterms is it could be a blue wave. It's too early to say for sure, but the national environment should at least lean in that direction a little bit. And back in 2018, during Trump's first term, Democrats in the House had dozens of pickups, so there's also the chance that if it's a massive blue wave, this could turn into a dummy mander. Now, this article also talks a lot about the racial makeup of the districts, and I know that's a big thing. A lot of lawsuits are centered around it, but on this channel, my main thing is the partisan balance of the statewide vote. But if you are interested in the racial makeup, currently there's apparently 22 districts that have a white majority, 7 with a Hispanic majority, and 9 with no majority. Under the proposed map, it's going to be 24 districts with a white majority, 8 Hispanic, 2 black, and 4 with no majority. So I can't say that I was even aware that there are no current districts that have a black majority. But my view is you've got to have one primary metric to judge these maps on. And for me, I think at the end of the day, both parties just want to get more seats in their column. They don't really care what the racial makeup is. So that's why my focus is easily going to be on the partisan balance. Now, all these links will be down below in the description, but let's see what Larry Sabato has to say about these maps. Here's the proposed map with 2024 presidential results. So this backs up what we just read. Trump would carry 30 of them, Harris 8. So in this, we've got South Texas all red, and Democrats would be losing another district in the combined Austin-San Antonio area, 1 in Houston and 1 in Dallas-Fort Worth. They'd still have 2 there, 3 in Houston, just 1 in Austin, 1 in San Antonio, and then 1 way out west in El Paso. Some of these districts are darker, but some of these start to become a little bit lighter. Those would be the ones that could be vulnerable if it was a big blue wave. Now let's go down here and see how this proposed map would have handled the 2018 blue wave in the Senate election. Here Ted Cruz would have won 26 of them. Beto O'Rourke, 12 of them. That was a great election for the Dems. They even got close to knocking off Ted Cruz. They got within about 2.5 points. So in this map, O'Rourke would have won several more districts, including all 3 of them here in South Texas. So under optimal scenarios for the Dems, there's some potential Republican vulnerabilities here on the map. You'd think Republicans drawing this map would have ran all different kinds of scenarios to make sure nothing bad could happen, but you never know. So which 5 Democrats would be vulnerable on the new map? Well, here on Punchbowl News, of course, first we've got Henry Cuellar, the Rio Grande Valley. He's already considered a super moderate Democrat. Some might even say conservative. He's also got a little bit of legal baggage of his own. So in the new map, he'd be gone also. Vicente Gonzalez, that's the district more on the Gulf Coast. That's going to cover Brownsville, and it did swing hard toward the right. Also, we're looking at Julie Johnson in the Dallas area. It even notes here that Republicans packed this district full of Democrats ahead of 2022. Now they want it back. Number 4 here is interesting. We've got Greg Casar and longtime incumbent Lloyd Doggett. They would be in the same district. So then they note here there could be a fascinating primary battle. Big age gap between these 2 candidates. But if this were the new map, this is a realistic scenario. The last district here is Mark Vesey. And even beyond that, it says there will be a new GOP seat in the greater Houston area. That's the vacant Sylvester Turner seat. And we could have Lizzie Fletcher, Al Green, and Sylvia Garcia having new seats to run in. So there's a whole lot of data here. And there's a lot to take a look at on this new proposed map. But without going on and on forever about it, how fair is this map going to be? Well, first of all, let's go back to 2024. This is the highest turnout election for president. Trump got 56.1, Harris got 42.7. So it's a decisive victory here for Trump. Flipping this state blue like the Dems had hoped 10 or 20 years ago has never really materialized. But this is with Trump on the ballot. Who's to say what would happen in the next election? But for comparison, let's see what Ted Cruz did in this same election. Cruz did a little bit worse. He was down in single digits. He's at 53.1. What about the statewide popular vote in the U.S. House? Well, here Republicans are at 58.4, Dems 40.4. Again, that comes out to 25 seats for the Republicans, 13 for the Dems. And given this is the vote for the U.S. House, I do think it's a better one-to-one comparison, but keep in mind, some of these districts have no major party opposition, so that will skew some of these numbers. But it is clear this is still pretty much a red state. There are a lot of Dems there for sure. But if South Texas is now increasingly red territory, Dems are going to be mostly confined to the major blue cities and some of the surrounding suburbs. Again, here's the top of the mountain for the Dems. Ted Cruz, 50.9. Beto O'Rourke, 48.3. Less than a 3-point win there for Cruz. He really was sweating that one out. But a lot has changed in 6 years. It could change back, it could stay the same. But given the most recent data we took a look at, that is enough for the Republicans to try to make a move here as they try to keep the majority in the U.S. House next year. Now, before we get to the final map, real quick, here's every congressional district in Texas with the 2024 vote for the U.S. House. Now, this is sorted in order of competitiveness. And the 2 districts that Trump won here, the 34th and the 28th, those again were won by Democrats. More than 5 points here for Cuellar, and a narrower margin for Vicente Gonzalez. Those I thought would be the targets Republicans would go for, and they did. But they're even expanding 3 seats beyond that. And that means they have to spread out some of their vote in some of these safer districts to try to cut into some of these bluer ones up here. So it is dirty politics, and if you're trying to be fair, there's no way you could say this map would not be heavily advantaging the Republicans. If this happened, this would be the most unfair Republican map. There's other bad states out there, Florida, North Carolina, Tennessee, but given the number of seats here, Republicans would take the cake on their own side. Now, if you also talk about the other side, the Dems, they've got egregious gerrymanders themselves. There's smaller states like Nevada, but then there's other states where Republicans are totally shut out, Connecticut, Massachusetts, but the biggest 2 offenders for the time being are Illinois and California. The geography definitely matters in these states. That's not favorable for the Republicans in California, and they did have an independent commission. But the bottom line is there's only 9 Republicans out of 52 districts there. And even though California is a more politically lopsided state, the Dems would still be coming out ahead compared to this map. Right now, Republicans control about 2/3 of the seats. That's a clear advantage. On the new map, it would be about 79%, Dems at about 21. By far, that's an egregious imbalance. But then if you look at Illinois, out of those 17 districts, Dems have 14 of them, Republicans 3. Again, that map is still technically more imbalanced than this new map here in Texas. Now finally, let's get on Dave's redistricting. Let's glance at this proposed map. Now this time we've got the 2024 presidential data here on the right, so you can hover over any of these districts and you'll see what that presidential vote was. Now a lot of these are still heavily Republican, but again, some of these a little bit lighter. Now if we zoom in just a little bit, we can also turn on the precinct level data. Then we can see exactly what's going on here if we start to zoom in here on San Antonio. So we've got the one deep blue district here, the 20th. But if we toggle this, then we can see a lot of the remaining blue vote is cracked and split into surrounding redder districts. That's when it really starts to get ugly, when you're splitting some of that vote into 3 or 4 surrounding districts. If we go up here just a little bit northeast to the Austin area, it's kind of the same thing. That 37th district, that's the deep blue one. But look what's going on right above it. We've got a layer of different districts that eats up the rest of that blue vote into the surrounding deep red area. That's how you dilute the vote and gain some extra seats. Again, it's not fair. It is dirty politics. I don't condone it at all. I'd like to see both sides be close to that statewide popular vote reflection. Doesn't have to be perfect. I know different states are going to take a little bit of an advantage, but when the imbalance starts to become dramatic and it hits 3, 4 or more seats, then there's a clear problem there. Let's take a look at the Dallas area. Right off the bat, this looks like a total mess. Let's find out just how bad it is. Yeah, that looks terrible. You're going to see the same thing though. Dems packed into a couple of districts, then the rest of the blue vote spread out into the surrounding area. And last, we'll head down into the Houston area to see what's going on there. It's going to be more of the same. You see a lot of the blue vote here. Then there's lighter shades of blue, lighter shades of red, then the extreme dark red once you get way outside the suburbs. But let's turn on the shading. And there you go, it's like a terrible jigsaw puzzle, purely designed to maximize one party. So you could stay here all day and focus on the specific boundaries and what it means for the different candidates in different areas. But I think I've said about all there is to say. It's a huge advantage for the Republicans, and it is a bit of a gamble. Dems might try to do the same thing in other blue states, but I think most of their heavy damage has already been done during the regular redistricting process. Maybe they squeeze out a little bit more, but then Republicans in other states could come back and try to squeeze more out as well. It is pretty much sinking deeper into the abyss of gerrymandering. At some point it's got to stop. I would like to find a solution for both sides. But for one reason or another, it seems like it could just never happen. It all leads to haphazard legal challenges and certain maps getting redrawn and certain ones standing. It's sloppy. Maybe this whole thing will lead to something good down the road. But for now, that's a look at this new proposed congressional map for Texas. So let me know in the comments. Do you think this map is actually going to be implemented? If it does, what do you think about how it's drawn? And how bad of a map do you think it is in comparison to other Republican maps and the Dems? Which map do you think is the absolute worst? And how do you think this is going to end? Let me know what you think down below on your way out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.